reception that you have given us here at Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Facility. Thank you so much. For members of Parliament and members of the public, this is where we will be conducting our business this week, starting today with the appearance of General Dimpane, and then the next witness, Mr. Matala, will appear from tomorrow. And that will be the work of the committee for this week. We are here, members of the public, at the foot of the Mogale Mountains, in a city that was established in 1855 called Pretoria. And today the area is commonly known as Tshwane, named after a river which runs from the bushveld up to the southern side of the settlements. This area is synonymous with our revolutionary combatants like Solomon Mahlangu, Stanza Bupape, and many other revolutionaries that have emerged. Is also part, especially this facility where we find ourselves, part of our heritage, that the son of King Squati of the Bapedi, Kgosi Mampuru II, was paraded naked here, Honorable Skosana, before he was hanged. Paraded naked before he was hanged in 1883. This is the land of the people of Mukize, people of Maimane, people of Moerane, and later Mogale. The Bakhatla who were in the Mabana Matana complex, the Bakhatla ba Mocha, ba Makau, ba Manana, ba Msetla, ba Khafela. This is the land of the Ndebele of Manala and the Ndebele of Nzunza, Mabena, and Mahlangu respectively. The land of the Ndebele of Kekana, who are today in the northern part of this republic. So with those remarks, I want to officially welcome you here and get ourselves ready to start the business of the day. We will start by checking if we have apologies, Bonani. We don't have any apologies received for recording. Honorable members, is there any amongst you who wish to submit apologies? I don't see any. Welcome, Honorable Matthias, and good morning. Thank you so much.
Did I say good morning, President?
SC, may we please confirm that our guest is the witness that we have expected?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members, and good morning, media, members of the public, and colleagues. This morning, may I just you ask for apologies? May I ask for Maria to be formally excused from the sitting here this week? You know that she would be busy with some other important work on behalf of the committee. Witness this morning is Puleng Patricia Dimpane, who's the Chief Financial Officer at Saps, and her evidence will be led by Ms. Lerato Sigalala this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Lieutenant General Dimpane.
Good morning, Chair.
Lieutenant General Dimpane is yourself.
Lieutenant General Puleng Dimpane is myself, Chair.
Thank you so much. We are going to proceed this way. I will have to administer oath before I hand over to the SC and yourselves to lead evidence. Before we administer oath, let me read the following to you that you have been invited to appear before this.
Sorry, Chair.
Honorable Malum.
I wanted to check where are the screens, because the screen,
The screens.
yeah, we can't see you. That's how Parliament works.
Can somebody respond to that question?
Chair, I will do that, Chair. Honorable Malema, as usual, money has been eaten. Thank you.
Is there anybody who is able to respond to the question?
Chair, Mr. Malema is wearing a suit today, so the screens are quite important for him today.
Chair, when you come from KwaZulu-Natal, you might not be able to differentiate between a screen and a camera. If a camera is here, there's no need for a screen. But for the purpose of proceedings, you need a screen. Thanks.
Yeah, but the chief whip speaks about the suit you are wearing. What do you say about the suit?
No, I didn't want to be confused with the residents here.
We are sorry, the screens, we do have the screens in the room, but we did not know that we needed to connect them, and we think we can connect them during the break because it will take some more minutes to connect them. Thank you.
Mr. Are you coming from Parliament? I wanted to check if he's coming from Parliament. Is the person from Parliament? Are you coming from Parliament? Can the person from Parliament come here and explain why there are no screens here?
Good morning. My name is Sizwe. My name is Sizwe from Broadcasting. Sorry, we're only deployed to broadcast on YouTube, which is what we are doing. Screens are another department. We're not informed of that. But the gentleman from here has made arrangements. We can provide him the feed and then he can display it on the screens. Thank you.
Look, we will live with your explanation, but it is inadequate because we have been told that you sent a team here about 2 weeks ago to make an assessment of this facility. And the fact that the GCIS official has confirmed that there are screens available here, they will be connected during break. Means that it's something that your team, when it was here, was supposed to have taken care of that. We will accept that as an omission on your part, and you will find a way to correct it. I don't think you must be crucified for that. But it must be a learning experience to you that this is one aspect that you should have checked when you came to do a visit here in the past weeks. Honorable Matthys, is your hand up?
Yes, Chair. Just quickly, they reported that they've only been procured to broadcast on YouTube. Does this mean our proceedings are not on the Parliament channel, on DSTV? Or is it just YouTube? Because YouTube costs people data opposed to DSTV, just for clarity.
Honorable Ngola.
No, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to request to check on our behalf because the person in front of us says she is Puleng Timpane. In the statement, it's written Patricia Timpane. So if you can check on our behalf if Puleng Timpane and Patricia Timpane is the same person. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yes, can we deal with that question of public interest? Whether the proceedings are streamed live on a Parliament channel. It's like I'm talking to myself.
Sorry, Chair, it's all Parliament platforms, including 408 and...
So the public are able to follow the proceedings from here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Look, this is something that you will agree with me that is something that we do not have to do. We don't have to delay proceedings even to deal with matters like this. Lieutenant Timpane, what are your full names?
Thank you, Chair. I am Lieutenant General Puleng Patricia Dimpane.
Puleng Patricia Dimpane.
Yes, Chair.
Are you fine, honorable members? Honorable Malim, Honorable Ngola, may we proceed? Thank you so much. Let me make those statements that I wanted to make before oath is administered. That you have been invited before this ad hoc committee which is investigating allegations that were made by Police Commissioner in the KwaZulu-Natal Province, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, on that day of 6 July 2025. The purpose is for you to assist the committee in its oversight work. You will be expected to give a testimony here. The allegations include, among others, unlawful disbandment of the Political Killings Task Team, the PKTT, or NPKTT, the alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the South African Police Services, the SAPS, and alleged corrupt relationship between senior leadership within the SAPS and members of the public, as well as political interference in the work of the SAPS. Lieutenant General Dimpani, in extending invitation, the ad hoc committee chairperson has indicated to you that you may provide such information to the committee if you so wish under oath in terms of powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004. And please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or even damages. Please note that you are, however, protected in that the evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or a Committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament. And that is why we had to declare this facility a parliamentary precinct before we proceed. Except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Once again, please be aware that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, any person who willfully furnishes a House or a Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading commits an offence and is liable to a fine or imprisonment to a period not exceeding 2 years. You will be required to take an oath or affirmation. Which one do you elect?
I will take an oath, Chair.
Thank you so much. If you choose to take an oath, you will then follow me as I dictate. You say "I" and mention your full names.
I, Lieutenant General Puleng Patricia Dimpani,
Swear that the evidence I shall give
swear that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you so much. We are done with this part. I'm handing over to you, SC, and I want to wish both of you good luck in leading evidence. We shall run until we break at 13 hours.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members. As indicated earlier, my colleague, Ms. Sikalala, will lead the evidence of General Dimpani this morning. Okay.
Or is it your Advocate Zikala?
Good morning, Chair. Yes.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
Good morning, committee members. Good morning, General Dimpani.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, and you?
I'm all right, thanks. I just want to deal with one matter of housekeeping in relation to General Dimpani's statement. Can I just confirm that members have before her statement, but it was also accompanied by a set of annexures. I understand that those annexures are made available electronically. Can I just get confirmation that the electronic annexures have been made available? Okay. General Dimpani, I see that you have brought some people with you from the Saps. Could you introduce them to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. I do have Major General Ramorana Tswai from our legal department in Saps. Next to her is Major General Matlo. She's the Chief Risk Officer in Saps. Then I have Brigadier Fansel. He works in my office and responsible for budget management in my office. Then I have Warrant Officer Lekau, who is assisting me with driving as well as protection duties for the CFO.
Thank you. General Dimpane, maybe as a way of kicking off, you stated paragraph 7 of your statement that you joined the Saps in 2007 as a lateral hire. Can you talk us through your background and how you got to be the Chief Executive Officer?
Thank you, Chair. I joined the South African Police Service in 2007 as an internal auditor. It was an appointment that is called a lateral appointment. At that time, I was a senior superintendent. The current rank is a colonel. And I worked in the Free State when Saps was establishing its internal audit units across the country. I was then appointed to head the unit in the Free State province. I was promoted as a brigadier to then head the finances in that part of the province. It was a provincial head finance. And I then also until 2015, I headed the finances in the Free State Saps. In 2015, then I got an opportunity to be appointed in a provincial government department, still in the Free State as a CFO, the post that I only occupied for a year, and then I was reinstated back in Saps in 2016 as a Major General, occupying the post, then it was called the Deputy Provincial Commissioner responsible for physical resources, until 2019 when I was promoted, took up the post of the Chief Financial Officer in head office in Pretoria.
Thank you. At the time of your appointment as the Chief Financial Officer, who was the National Commissioner at the time?
It was General Setole in 2019.
And in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, that's when General Masimula then took over as the National Commissioner.
Yes, correct.
So can you maybe then take us through what is the relationship between you as the CFO and that of the National Commissioner?
The National Commissioner is the accounting officer of Saps. He's the DG. He's the head of this department. And the PFMA dictates that the accounting officer should appoint a CFO to assist him or her to execute his responsibilities or her responsibilities as outlined in terms of Part 2, Chapter 5 of the PFMA. So I'm appointed precisely to execute those responsibilities and assist the accounting officer in this regard. So I report directly to the accounting officer as the Chief Financial Officer.
Okay. So the National Commissioner is the accounting officer in terms of the PFMA, and you are there to be able to support the role of the National Commissioner. Can you, it's already outlined in your statement, can you take us through the various things that you are responsible for as then the Chief Financial Officer reporting to the National Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. As indicated, I'm appointed and assigned responsibilities to assist the accounting officer in terms of those responsibilities that are outlined on Chapter 5 of the PFMA, Part 2. My responsibilities include budget management. I oversee the budget of the entire Saps, expenditure management for the entire organization across the country, bookkeeping as well as reporting the financial statements are my responsibility. I also coordinate the audit issues that will include the Auditor General activities for the department. I'm also responsible for compensation services. This is managing the issues such as salaries, debtors, allowances for the entire organization. I'm also responsible for internal control, as well as issues that talks to governance. I participate in the audit committee. I also chair the combined assurance. I work very closely with the internal auditors, including the Office of the Chief Risk Officers. All the governance structures I am responsible for or oversee, because to assist the accounting officer in terms of the duties that are outlined in Chapter 5.
So, just taking you now to paragraph 8 of your statement, do you want to just maybe, if you want to read it into the record, you wanted to clarify really what is your role with regards to the approval of expenditure and so on? You can read it from the record or you can explain.
Yes. While I oversee financial operations, it is crucial to understand that my role does not extend to operational decisions. Operational decisions are taken by the relevant program managers that are responsible for operations and ultimately with the National Commissioner. I am not responsible for contract awards, or I do not have any direct involvement in supply chain management prior to the recent changes in terms of the structural changes. My function is to confirm that funds are available and to ensure that there is compliance to financial prescripts. I do not approve expenditures in the sense of initiating specific projects, task teams. Instead, I make recommendations as well as ensure and confirm financial viability. The only approvals I make relates to the activities that are within my division. My division is called Financial Management Services.
So as I understand what you're saying from paragraph 8 is that you are responsible for at least the definition of financial management services.
Yes.
But in relation to things such as contract awards or what operational decisions are taken, those operational decisions sit elsewhere, is that correct?
Yes. Historically, the division supply chain management was not integrated into the CFO's office. This is a separate division that is managed by Lieutenant General Fani, who is currently the divisional commissioner, and he reports directly to the National Commissioner. However, I wish to state that since May 2025, a new organizational structure has been approved, and this organizational structure then amends the reporting lines of the division supply chain management to be reporting directly to the CFO. However, this new organizational structure is yet to be implemented. This is pending processes that are unfolding gradually within the relevant restructuring committees. The implementation is ongoing and gradual. Therefore, for most of the period under discussion, supply chain management was a distinct function, and it remained so pending the integration. My current performance agreement that I have signed with the National Commissioner, as I report to him, reflects my duties relating only to financial management services, not supply chain.
Yes. And if the committee had the benefit last week of hearing from Lieutenant General Fani in relation to issues of supply chain management, so, and also had the benefit of being able to see the organizational structure. And he also confirmed in his evidence that he reports directly in relation to supply chain issues to the National Commissioner, and you report directly in relation to finance matters to the National Commissioner.
Correct.
So, how your evidence before the committee has been structured is that you deal with essentially 3 themes. You deal with the approval and budget allocations in relation to the PKTT, which is the next topic that we're going to discuss. The second topic is you deal with your interactions with the minister, in particular Minister Mampuru. And then the third topic, you deal with the point at which your department interacted with the health risk management contract.
Correct.
So maybe then as an overview, can you broadly give the committee an indication of how the budgets are structured or allocated within the SAPS?
Thank you, Chair. The Budget as well as resource allocation follows a program structure. We have 5 programs. Program 1 that deals with everything to do with administration within the department. Program 2, which is our biggest program within our budget structure, that deals with everything to do with visible policing. Program 3, that deals with crime detection, that will include DPCI. And we then have program 4 that deals with matters that relates to crime intelligence, with the last program being program 5 that deals with protection services, that includes VIP protection. So these are the 5 main budget programs. They do have sub-programs within them. And after those sub-programs, then you will have relevant divisions, you will have units in this regard. So that is how our budget structure in terms of programs is outlined.
Yes. So I understood you to say that program 2 is visible policing.
Yes.
Is that where task teams would be located?
That is where task teams, intervention teams, as well as project teams will be located. There is a National Operation Coordination Center that runs almost all the interventions, the task teams, as well as operations sitting within program 2.
So when you're trying to then allocate a budget in relation to task teams, or maybe we can take one step back, what is the manner in which you allocate to task teams as opposed to various units and other things that you have within the Saps?
We do have a formal allocation methodology where we will then allocate the budget to all cost centers, but specifically to the task teams, we allocate to the National Operation Coordination Center or to a cost center that will be determined by the accounting officer in this particular regard. So all these operations, task teams and interventions are then coordinated nationally through the National Operation Coordination Center. However, there might be instances where the National Commissioner will then establish a task team or an intervention team and direct you to say the funding could be given to a specific province to deal with that particular task team or to manage it. But in the main, the budget is allocated at the National Operation Coordination Center.
Okay. And so the budget allocations for the PKTT would come then from whatever budget is made available in that National Operation Coordination Center?
It will be clearly indicated. There are various task teams, various operations as well as interventions that will be allocated. I have heard the latest to say it is 11 of such interventions. It will be allocated, it will be clearly indicated. However, when the task team started in 2018, the budget was allocated to the province, and over the years then it was allocated to the National Operations Center.
So can I just confirm, when you're talking about 2018, are you talking now about the PKTT?
Yes.
So that's the 2018-2019 budget period?
18-19 budget, yes, at inception.
Yes. And so that initial budget was drawn, as you say, from provincial?
It was allocated nationally. It's a special allocation. It's not part and parcel of the baseline allocation of the province. It will be a special allocation. We would then establish a project code on the system to be able to track the expenditure as well as to be able to can predict the allocations linked to that particular task team.
Okay. So how many task teams do you have in the Saps at the moment?
If I am correct, I have read somewhere that the latest is 11. 11, it's task teams / operations / intervention teams.
And in your witness statement, to focus more sharply on the issue of the PKTT and the budget and how it's been allocated over the past few years, in your witness statement you begin to detail how the budget has been allocated. Can I ask you to, maybe for a globular view, can we turn to page 15 of your witness statement?
Okay, is it paragraph 15?
Page 15, it's table A.
Okay. Yes, I have table A.
So, can you discuss or explain to the committee what table A is intended to explain?
Okay. When I was invited to the committee chair, I was requested to provide expenditure trends for the PKTT since inception. And I was also requested to provide a comparison in terms of the PKTT and other existing task teams or intervention teams. So I have two tables. I will start with table A. This is expenditure items that were recorded for the PKTT for the different financial years since inception. You will note that the first year...
Dimbani, let me maybe slow you down a little bit. You say these are expenditure items and these need to be differentiated from the allocations.
Yes.
So can you just explain what that means?
On table A, it only depicts the expenditure items. These are expenses that have been incurred since inception by the PKTT. To this end, 435 million has been spent in this regard. However, you will note that on the annexures that I have provided that supports my statement that I was also requested to provide the budget approvals in this regard. So I do have the budget approvals that I have referred to on my statement. If I am to take you through.
Can I just go back to those annexures that are in your statement? Those are those information notes over the particular years?
Yes, and allocation letters as well.
So those information notes, they depict essentially what is allocated.
Yes.
But what this table is showing is the actual expenditure that eventually then goes through.
Yes, correct.
So at the top, the overall figure you have at table A is that to date, there's been 435 million spent on the PKTT.
Correct.
Can you speak or at least discuss how that has been broken down over the particular years and what the various expenditure items are?
Okay. As indicated, table A will then depict expenditure items that were recorded for the PKTT. And I must indicate that these are the direct controllable costs that we utilize as and when we allocate funding to the various intervention teams. These are the figures that we will then utilize. You will note that since 2018-19 up to this year, September, in the last column, that your biggest cost driver in terms of the work of this team would be on the line item called overtime as well as travel and subsistence, in the main, the accommodation. The members of the team may not necessarily come from KwaZulu-Natal. It will be members that come from head office and elsewhere, and you need to then accommodate those members and pay the accommodation fees. They do work overtime. That is why you will see those two line items being a little bit on an increased trend. You do have a few items there in terms of their incidental costs, as well as from time to time those that will require to travel, they will then travel. When you look at the last year, 25-26 on overtime, you will note that there is a zero. It does not mean that the team has not performed and claimed overtime. We will soon be processing their claims, and there will be an expenditure in relation to this financial year. So they are continuously working, currently working, and I am certain that those claims are currently being processed, and you will soon then record expenditure in that regard. So overtime, travel, as well as issues of their meals will be the line items that you will note a bit of an increase in terms of those expenditure items.
So, just to take you back, these various expenditures are the expenditure items that have been incurred over the past 6 years throughout the lifespan of the PKTT, is that correct?
Yes.
And you've highlighted the overtime as one of the big expenditure items from the team. Can you talk to me? I see, when I look at the table, I see that travel and subsistence, then there's for accommodation, food and beverage incidental costs, and air and road travel. And they seem to make up the first four also big expenditure items that arise from the team.
Yeah, that is correct.
Is that, and this is my layman understanding, is that because the team is not a formal structure and it's drawing from different provinces, or is there a reason why that travel and subsistence is such a big expenditure item?
As I indicated, when the operational environment would agree or pick up crime patterns or crime trends in an area, any area in the country, and they sit and discuss and analyze and come to a conclusion that we need to go and stabilize that situation. Sometimes they would use the local guys, sometimes they will then deploy from all over the country based on the decisions as well as the approvals in this regard. The members of this task team are from across various environments, and you need to accommodate them as and when they go and operate in KwaZulu-Natal or operate elsewhere in the country, and you need to also ensure that there is food as well as S&T that is provided for them, and they do work hard, they do claim overtime in this particular regard. So it's not anything that is strange. This is how the work of the police is done. This is how the task teams as well as those interventions. And those task teams would have been established for a specific period to go and achieve a specific outcome. So they are temporary in nature, these interventions as well as these task teams. They are not permanent. They are established for a specific period, they are established for a specific purpose, and there will be cost estimates that will then be submitted to the National Commissioner, and the submission will come to us to confirm if funding is available. Of course, as the finance team, as myself as the CFO, occasionally there is a need for me to comment or raise concerns in relation to this. You will note that over the years...
Let me just ask you a question before you pivot in relation to that. What I'm trying to ascertain from you is the expenditure trend that we see here. Is that an expenditure trend that you would see if the team was more permanent rather than it being a task team? Or is it an expenditure trend that is one that is like this because you're dealing with an informal structure where members are coming in and out at various points?
If it was a permanent team or permanent unit, let's say for instance it is established in KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm making an example, then you will not have an expenditure line item that is called accommodation, because members will be permanent, they will be staying in their homes. You will not see expenditure items that talks to issues of meals, because the members will be permanent at home. Safe to say that perhaps from time to time they will be required to travel elsewhere to another province on investigation, and then you will see those accommodation costs coming up if they are required to travel out of their normal station in this regard.
So obviously whether the team is a permanent or a task team is not a decision that's made by finance. It's just in relation to noting this particular expenditure trend.
It is not a decision that is made by finance. It is a decision that would be made by the accounting officer, having consulted all the relevant role players in terms of operations. That would be the head of operations, which is the deputy provincial commissioner, operations, and all the relevant role players. If, for instance, a decision is taken to say there is a stubborn crime trend in Western Cape, those decisions will be taken by the relevant operational environments, and the National Commissioner would then approve to say, we are going to intervene, let us go and stabilize that particular. So it is operational decisions. What is required from us is to support such interventions to ensure that the country is safe.
May we take Honorable Sangone?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, General. Just a quick question for follow-up, for clarity, Chair. Before Advocate Zigala goes off on the expenditures, I just wanted to check with the CFO. If a member is deployed, let's say from Limpopo to KwaZulu-Natal, in terms of these line items here, would that one member, for example, be eligible for overtime, accommodation, food, and a daily allowance? Can we read it like that, that they will get all of those things as okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Correct, Chair.
Thank you. I want to pivot into Table B. Is there anything in relation to Table A that you want to elaborate on or explain?
I am fine, Chair. Safe to say that all these expenditures would have been approved by the accounting officer in this regard. Those submissions do come to us to then ascertain financial viability as well as to support the work that is done by this team.
And those information notes, for just for the purposes of the committee, are attached, the various approvals that were made over the years. Can I ask you then to turn to page 17 of your statement? And that's Table B.
Sure.
So what we looked at in Table A was the expenditure of the PKTT over the past 6 years alone. Can you tell us what Table B is explaining here?
As I indicated, Chair, on the invitation to appear before this committee, it was also requested of me to provide a comparison in terms of other existing interventions and or task teams. We are indicating on paragraph 15 that as certain crime threats emerge, the relevant national operation environments in Saps will from time to time coordinate deployments, interventions, task teams or operations with the primary purpose of stabilizing as well as normalizing such crime situations. Various such deployments, interventions or task teams had been coordinated and managed by Saps over the multiple financial years, of which only the prominent ones were deemed appropriate to be mentioned for comparative purposes. As I indicated, there is an indication that there are 11. However, for purposes of this exercise, we then deemed it necessary only to focus on those ones that are prominent and they are deemed appropriate for purposes of comparisons. So the details are indicated in terms of Table B.
So so just to clarify, though there are 11 task teams, when you're doing an analysis trying to compare apples for apples essentially, to see which interventions, which task teams you're spending money on, you essentially chose these ones, which I think is 6 on table B, to be able to do the comparison.
That is correct, sir.
So can you just a brief description about what these various task teams and so on that you have selected to be able to do this comparison are?
So Table B indicates expenditures that were recorded for prominent Saps national deployments, interventions, as well as task teams, etc., for different financial years. For purposes of comparisons, we then took from 2018-19. We have the first one that I have heard that it deals with the issues of illicit mining. This is an operation or an intervention that is normally called Valam Gold. You will note that this particular intervention only started in 23-24, and we have expenditure up to 25-26, up to end of September. This one you will note that the expenditure up to date for 3 years is over R1 billion. And I will indicate to the committee that this is mainly an operation or an intervention that is funded through CARA funding. It's funding that does not come from our baseline. We are given an opportunity as the law enforcement agencies to, from time to time, approach the CARA funding committee to then request funding. The CARA committee or the CARA funding is funding that is used to assist departments. This is the criminal assets recovery account. So from time to time, the accounting officer, having assessed the financial or alternative financial sources, would approach the CARA committee. So the illicit mining or the Valamgodi intervention is funded from that particular source, and this source is not part of our baseline. It is money.
In relation to, so when we're looking at this comparison, though the various task teams are listed, and this illicit mining one is just in absolute numbers the most expensive, or the one that's cost the most at 1.1 billion.
Correct.
That 1.1 billion actually isn't coming out of the Saps budget.
It is not.
Okay.
It is not. It is funding that was sourced through the CARA committee by the accounting officer, and we are grateful for that. And the reason why we would then go and look for alternative funding is because of the financial constraints that we find ourselves in. We have experienced financial constraints in a form of budget reductions on our operational funding. For us to be able to succeed with these operations, we from time to time have to then make funding available, and it becomes a challenge when you are faced with budget reductions in terms of operational funding. So we look at other alternative funding sources, and this is one, and as a department we are grateful for such. So this is money that was made available for us to be able to go throughout the provinces that had issues in terms of managing this crime pattern, and 1.1 billion has been utilized up to so far.
Yes. So then the next one is the 2021 unrest. So an intervention or a task team was then established. Can you just talk us through that?
Yes, during the 2021 unrest, there was a situation that needed to be contained, and obviously it could not be contained using the normal resources in those provinces that were affected. Therefore, decisions were taken to put together special interventions and special teams to go and support those provinces. You will note that then we had the bulk of the expenditure lying on 2021, and then few claims that came through in 2022 up to 24-25. These are the expenses that were incurred in support of those operations, as well as interventions in those provinces that were affected.
So what I can see from this table is that over the period in which the SAPS was dealing with that unrest, that it costs just 950 million, so just shy of $1 billion, to be able to deal with that unrest situation. And this was drawn directly from the SAPS budget.
It was drawn directly from the SAPS budget, and we needed to reprioritize, because it was a situation that was confronting us. We needed to reprioritize and ensure that we contain that situation through ensuring that there are sufficient deployments and support that was provided to the provinces that were affected.
Is this just, for my layman understanding, is this what would be the classic idea of a task team, where something happens that is unexpected, like the 2021 unrest, and the SAPS have to react, and then budgets have to be reprioritized and allocated to deal with that? Is this, if one wanted to get a kind of simplified example that everyone's familiar with?
Not necessarily. We deal with different situations. Like I indicated, the operatives will sit and do their crime pattern analysis and identify stubborn areas. There are other stubborn crime patterns that would demand or require from the SAPS leadership to then deal with them in applying other methodologies. Then there will be those that are unexpected that you'll have. So we deal with quite a number of situations that from time to time requires special intervention or special attention in this particular regard. You will note that the next one, before I get to the political task team, would be operations in Cape Town. We have been in the Western Cape and investing in terms of resources, additional resources to deal with those issues in this particular regard. So we deal with different situations, different policing problems emerge from time to time. You do have areas that require stabilization. You do have areas that requires additional resources in this regard. Sometimes you then do have those that will take place now. For instance, you look at the March 2023 shutdown. It is a situation that needed to be contained in this regard. You will note that during that March it was a closure of the books or closure of the financial year, and you then needed to spend or process those payments in March, and in the following year, probably in April, those claims that could not go through then went through in April in the following year. So you do have different type of policing challenges that the police are confronted with from time to time, and those challenges requires different interventions and different plans and strategies.
So, just finally, in relation to this table, I see some of these intervention units, the expenditure is only for a couple of years, whereas I can see that in relation to the PKTT operation lockdown and thunder, and the Kgosi cross-border in KZN, those have a task team operations and expenditure that's been incurred for at least 6 years.
Yes.
So does that mean that, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, if when you're looking at the 432, you must also consider the duration within which the expenditure was incurred, whereas some of these seem to have incurred the expenditure over a shorter period.
Yes, correct. And when you look at those three, perhaps they are the more comparable ones. You will note that for lockdown as well as Kgosi, then the expenditure goes down. Evaluations of these interventions do take place from time to time. The operational environments and the project team leaders will convene and have discussions and evaluate and take decisions to say we are demobilizing or we are reducing the number of deployments. So those operational decisions are a norm, and those discussions are a norm, and of course any decision would have to then go through the accounting officer or the national commissioner to then approve such a decision in that regard.
So when I look at these tables, I see vast amounts of money that is being spent on various operations, and these are the as you say, the absolute sums, the expenditure that's come through. Are you able to give an assessment whether they are on value for money, whether these operations are successful or so on, just looking at these tables?
These tables that I've provided to the committee are not necessarily indicating the impact assessment, and these are some of the concerns that we normally raise from a financial point of view with the operational environment, to then look at the issues of value for money or impact assessment. Of course, ultimately we are assessed as a country in terms of whether, or as the police in terms of whether the crime stats or crime statistics are going down. However, from a financial point of view, what we have then done, this is a conversation that we always ask ourselves, because we need to ensure that there is return for investment. We spend a lot of money on these interventions, and we need to ensure that there is indeed return for investment. So in 2024, myself and my team, we then approached the research unit. We do have a research unit in Saps precisely for this, because I would want to know from a finance point of view that is this a correct policy methodology? Is it yielding any impact, and is it value for money? So we then wrote to our research department to assist us with this impact study on all these operations, and also to advise us, because currently we do not have a model that we can utilize to assess value for money of all these operations. So we approached them, and there is indication that work has been done on the lockdown as well as Valamgodi operations. That impact assessment has been done. However, the report has not yet been discussed or issued in this regard. It also, the research unit has also indicated that they are in the process of developing this value for money model that we can utilize. But they have cautioned me to say it is not an easy process. It is difficult. It takes into account the number of variables, and they have to engage with a number of stakeholders. However, if they are successful before the end of this financial year, they will be presenting us with that model that we can utilize and be able to take decisions and assess that indeed there was value for money and there was return on investment in terms of all these interventions that we have done. So it is a conversation that we have had, myself and the team, as well as the research team, because we need then to advise the organization in this regard. So we look forward to the outcome of that assessment from our research environment, and it will assist us in this regard to ensure that there is efficiency in terms of the work that we do and the resources that we make available.
So, what we've managed to look at is to be able to look at the PKTT's budget expenditure as a whole over its lifespan, and we've been able to look at the PKTT as a task team vis-a-vis or as against other interventions and task teams, and how those expenditure trends have been done in order to be able to have a comparison.
Correct.
So the one thing, and just to take you back in your witness statement, you then outline the various discussions you've had with the National Commissioner in relation to budget and expenditure for the PKTT in particular, because that's the team we're talking about. I wanted to ask, is there anything in relation to the conversations you've had with the National Commissioner about the PKTT that you'd like to be able to highlight or explain in relation to how the budget has been allocated to that team?
We always have conversations, myself and the National Commissioner, when it comes to these interventions, including the resources that are required to support these interventions. When it comes to the PKTT, the request for funding would come to us, and we will have those conversations. When it comes to the PKTT, I have had conversations with the National Commissioner to say, my understanding is that a task team is established for a specific period, for a specific reason, and then it is withdrawn. But with the PKTT, we have noted that it is clearly dealing with something that is permanent. So for us, from a budgeting point of view, it becomes challenging when you receive applications almost every 3 months for 5 years. So you are unable to budget properly, you are unable to project properly. It may be necessary that perhaps this becomes a permanent structure to deal with the permanent problem that seemingly exists that they are dealing with. So we have had those conversations. It was my understanding that this particular team was established to deal with the problems in KwaZulu-Natal. I've even made suggestions to say, let us task OD, the OD is our organizational development, to put together a permanent structure, and we give this structure to General Mkhwanazi in KwaZulu-Natal to deal with this permanent problem, because for 5 years we can continue like this from a budgeting point of view. Now, if it is a permanent structure, then you are able to resource it properly, you are able to budget and plan for it properly, so that then you support the team to be able to do its job. So we have had those conversations in this particular regard, myself and the National Commissioner. And the National Commissioner, then during those conversations, obviously, from an operational point of view, knowing that the work of this PKTT has been, the scope has increased. They are no longer only operating in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, he has got no obligation to explain that to me. He said, perhaps then it should not be local. If it is a permanent structure, it should not be localized in KwaZulu-Natal, and that structure perhaps could be in head office. So those are the conversations that we have. So if it is a national structure, then it will be able to serve all the provinces should there be any political issues that are picked up in other provinces. So for me, from a budgeting point of view, it is an issue that I have raised. However, I raised it in the view that then this team clearly is dealing with something permanent. Let's make it permanent so that then there is proper budgeting, there is proper resource allocation, and there is proper accountability in this regard when it is a permanent team. So I have had those conversations.
So as I understand your evidence, and you'll correct me, that the difficulty with dealing with a team that is not a permanent structure is that it's not formally budgeted for, and that the applications come in every 3 months or sporadically or ad hoc in a way where you can't necessarily anticipate when the applications for further budget allocations would be made.
That is correct. And also for me, I need to be able to hold someone to account for the utilization of those resources that would have been allocated. And it also makes it easy for you to plan and to allocate resources in order to properly support that particular team. So if it becomes a team that operates for a longer period on a temporary basis, you are unable to, from a financial point of view, to then resource it properly and to make those projections properly. And then you will have other resources being utilized. Those resources would have been drawn from other units and so on and so on. So we needed it to be a structured team, continuing with its work because it is doing a great work, and being supported with proper resources and obviously accountability. Someone has to be held accountable in terms of the monies that would have then been given to the team to do its job.
Yes. So this is a conversation, or these are conversations. They are outlined in the various sub-paragraphs of paragraph 13. I don't think we necessarily have to go there with regards to how you resource this team and whether it should be made a permanent structure or not. But ultimately, that's not a decision for you to make, is it?
It is not.
And that's a decision which lies where?
With the accounting officer.
Yes. So, and maybe this is a good segue to then go into the second kind of theme of your evidence, because it has become a big part of the evidence that has been presented before this committee, that one of the reasons for disbandment of the team that was given by Minister Mkunu was that he had various budget issues in mind. So I don't want you to address that now. I just want you to address, and maybe let's start at paragraph 17 of your statement on page 18.
Okay.
So at this point, Minister Mkunu becomes the minister in charge of the Saps at when is it? Is it end of June, early July? And do you have any interactions with Minister Mkunu?
Thank you, Chair. Like any other executive authority that will then be appointed to head the vote police, vote 28, Minister Mkunu became the executive authority for SAPS after the elections in the 7th administration. As part of the executive management of SAPS, we were requested to then embark on meetings to assist with the orientation of the new minister together with his team. And these meetings, or the orientation meetings, would have been arranged by ministry through the Office of the National Commissioner. And we will be invited from various environments to ensure that then we present certain reports that would have been required. During the minister's orientation, I was requested by the National Commissioner to make reports and presentations on the overall budget framework as well as the department's budget. I have to date, I can confirm that I have made 5 of such presentation. The first presentation or report that I made in terms of those various meetings, these meetings would have been arranged and authorized by the National Commissioner, and in the main, the National Commissioner together with other executive management would have been present. The first meeting was on the 12th of July, where we had a presentation that we made. We called it an introductory briefing to the minister. I made that presentation to orientate the minister in terms of the budget of Saps. The second meeting was on the 31st of July, 2024, where I made a presentation that spoke to financial matters pertaining to the police. The third meeting was on the follow-up meeting was on the 14th of August. This was a follow-up of a meeting that had taken place on 31 July because there would have been questions and other issues that the minister would have raised. So we then conducted the follow-up meeting on the 14th of August. There were issues, concerns raised on issues of civil claims and other cost pressures. And then the next follow-up meeting, this is now following up the meeting that took place on the 14th of August, was a meeting that was held on the 12th of September 2024, where there were other instructions or expectations, issues such as the financial pressures. The minister wanted to know the split between head office as well as provinces, issues of capacitation of crime intelligence and other important environments. The last meeting that I've had with the minister, authorized by the National Commissioner, was on the 6th of June 2025, where we are then taking the minister through the apportioning of the 2025 budget in this regard. And I can confirm.
So just to take one step back. So the minister, when he gave his evidence, he explained that there was pretty much like a 6-month orientation session that was taking place within the Saps starting from July when he took over as the executive authority.
Yes.
And what you are explaining is that during that orientation session, at various points you were asked to make presentations to the to the minister, and you have attached in your witness statement the various presentations that you made to the minister in relation to various financial and budgetary issues relevant to the Saps.
Correct.
So just over by paragraph 19, can you read that and then just explain what your evidence is from there?
Yes. I can confirm that all these 5 presentations that I've mentioned in paragraph 18 dealt with the budget framework, overall challenges as well as pressure points in the organization. None of these presentations dealt with the matters that are relating to PKTT. To our strategic presentations, there was nothing that we spoke about in these 5 presentations that related to the PKTT.
So in these, so you're making these presentations, but they're at a very high level in relation to the overall SAPS budget and so on.
That is correct.
And even though your presentations may not have dealt with the PKTT, did the minister ever ask you in relation to budgetary issues and so on around, what is the budget implications of the PKTT, or express any concerns in relation to that?
I have never spoken to the minister about the PKTT budget. All discussions concerning the allocation of funds to the PKTT are solely between myself and the National Commissioner as the accounting officer. The typical process, as I had indicated, is that the project leader would then apply for an extension of funding as well and submit this request. The submission will then go through various levels of approval, eventually ending up with the National Commissioner. I usually have these conversations with the National Commissioner during this process. We regularly discuss matters with all teams, including matters that pertains to intervention task teams as well as the PKTT. These are routine conversations between myself and the National Commissioner. My role then is to confirm whether there is funding. If there is no funding, we then have a conversation with the National Commissioner in terms of determining priorities or reprioritizing to ensure that we support this. These are the conversations that I have only with the National Commissioner.
So these are conversations, as you say, that you have with the National Commissioner as the accounting officer in relation to how you allocate the budget. and that there were never conversations that were either that you had with the minister or that were ever raised with the minister in relation to how you allocating the budget, how these task teams are essentially impacting the overall SAPS budget framework.
The presentation for 2025 in terms of the apportioning of the allocation, it spoke to the apportioning of the allocation to all cost centers, but it did not touch on anything that relates to the PKTT.
Okay. So, can you confirm, how did you learn about the disbandment?
I had gone on leave from the 17th of December last year. That leave ended on the 10th of January 2025. So on the 2nd of January, while I was on leave, I learned of the disbandment. I think I saw something on one of the news outlets. That's how I learned about it. I was on leave.
And General Timbane,
Advocate Zikalala, may we please take Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a follow-up, Chair, on the Minister being briefed about the budget arrangements of the PKTT. And it's very important, Chair, because the Minister bases strongly, amongst other reasons, that budgeting of financial costs of the PKTT will be becoming too much. So, has the Minister or the National Commissioner solicited any cost analysis of the PKTT from you?
No. No, Chair.
Have you ever been made to account on the cost effectiveness of the PKTT in the SAPS top management meeting?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much, sir.
We may proceed. Honorable Matthews.
Also, just a follow-up or a question of clarity. There were 11, or there's 11 task teams. So did the minister also inquire about any of the other 10 at all, like specifically on how much was spent?
From me as a CFO, I have never.
In those 5 presentations to him, there was no questions from him or his team?
These were strategic presentations, Chair. I have never been requested to come and present in terms of the operations to the minister.
For any of them? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Thank you. So, as the committee members have already foreshadowed, it was a significant part of the minister's evidence before this committee that it was, he had in mind these budgetary pressures when he wrote the disbandment directive and he essentially issued it. And when he was before this committee, one of the things that he relied on heavily was a comment you had made in an information note. Now, I don't know if the committee members have that information note. It's in the annexures, but the comment is also set out on paragraph 20, page 20, paragraph 23. The information note for those who want to look at the annexures is PPD 13 at page 105. And so, just to take one step back, this was an information note for the 2024, for the period 1 April 2024 to 31 March 2025. Is that correct?
Correct.
The information note was, as I see it, and I can pull it up quickly, was completed or was an application for funding that was done by General Kumalo. And that application for funding was then made, I think, in March. Let me check. Was made on the 26th of March 2024. Is that correct? Do you have it before you?
That is correct.
So the comment that you made on that information note was essentially approved before the minister came into office.
That is correct.
And then can you then take us through essentially what you were trying to explain in that comment? You've set it out in paragraph 23 of your statement, if you want to have a look at that.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps before I even get to my comment, I wish to state that I did not give anyone permission to utilize that information note. That information note was an information note requesting funding from the project leader to the National Commissioner, and it came to my table to then confirm if funding is available. I was shocked to hear about that information note being utilized in evidence in this regard. And nobody has ever asked me about the context of that particular comment that I had made on this information note. Nobody. And it is a conversation that I had had with the National Commissioner when that request for funding came to our table. The project leader requested 94 million. You will recall that this information note comes in March. Somewhere towards the end of March, you are trying to close a financial year 23-24, and you are getting to the new financial year.
Can I just pause, because I think that is an important detail. The financial year for the end of the financial year is the end of March.
It's the end of March, yes.
So the information note comes on the 26th of
March.
Yes. So it's coming just before you are about to close your books, or I don't know what you close.
Correct.
Yes.
It's coming just towards the closure of a financial year, and the
Before that, Chair.
May I
Yes,
proceed?
there's a question.
No, there was a point she was trying to articulate which she feels very strong about it. And she was interrupted that no one even asked her about it, and she was shocked to see. So I thought we must allow her to finish that ventilation. And then we can take forward the new question that she's talking about. Because this might be a platform where she feels she needs to express herself, and she has been sitting with this matter. And she must be given that opportunity.
That is granted. Honorable, General Timbani, can you conclude the point that you wanted to elaborate?
I wanted to indicate that this is one of the many information notes or funding requests that will come to our table. This was a request that was made by the project leader, and it was submitted in March. This is a conversation that I have with the National Commissioner, and I make several observations and comments in this regard. And I get to be shocked when this information note is utilized as evidence, and trying to portray a picture as if I was advocating for the disbandment of the political task team. It is taken out of context, and I believe that this is an important platform to then deal with the context in terms of this information note. I wish to state that I did not give anyone permission to use that or give anyone the physical document in this regard to use in their evidence. Now, this information note comes, it has been taken out of context. Then I make an observation to say we are closing a financial year. We are getting into the new financial year. Between April and May, we will be engaging in a process where we then allocate or a process of distributing resources to all cost centers in this regard. For the purposes of allowing this task team to then do their work, we agree with the National Commissioner that the initial allocation will then be 20 million. You will note that the project leader had requested 94. We agree with the National Commissioner that up until we finalize the internal apportioning of the budget, we will then confirm 20 million to allow for the team to work while we finalize the processes of internal apportioning. And those processes unfolded and they were concluded in May. And I can indicate to this committee that the allocation for the team for that financial year was not 20 million, it was 55. The 20 million was an initial allocation as agreed with the National Commissioner, and subsequently we then concluded the internal apportioning and decisions were taken, and additional funding was given to the team, and the total allocation for that year was 55 million. Now I raised these concerns to say the National Commissioner, this team has been in existence for a long time, and I think I have raised this earlier. It is impossible, it's practically impossible for me from a budget point of view to operate in this fashion. It will be best, and you will note that the last comment there I'm saying, task component OD, this is organizational development, to urgently conduct a work study investigation for the establishment of a permanent structure. And I'm talking to the permanent structure that relates to PKTT in KwaZulu-Natal. I had indicated that it was my view that this team was established to deal with the problems in KwaZulu-Natal. It's been 5 years. Clearly this team is then dealing with a serious problem that does not want to go away. For us to be able to resource this team properly, let's have a permanent structure in KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the National Commissioner has different views to say, not localized in KwaZulu-Natal. Perhaps when we deal with this and we come to that decision, it might be a team that is national to be able to deal with the similar problems in other provinces. Of course, he knew from an operational point of view, I'm assuming, that the scope of this team had expanded into other provinces. He had no obligation to share that with me. And ultimately, he then approved the initial allocation of 20 million. When we are done with the internal apportioning, then the total allocation to support this team for that year was 55 million. So the document has been out there, been discussed out of context, and nobody has ever reached out to me to say, what exactly did you mean by these comments? So I thought I would use this opportunity to then clear the air and clarify this. The allocation for that year was then 55 million with a total spending of 57.5 million at the end of that financial year. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Sangon.
Thank you very much, Chair. General, on that issue that well, you've well articulated the context, but I can tell that you are quite upset with your comment having been used as evidence. How does it work in Saps? Because I see that that information note had 3 signatures, if I'm not mistaken. General, okay. But you were the second last before the National Commissioner. Now, once you make your comment and it goes to the National Commissioner, ordinarily does it go back down the line so everybody can see the comments? I'm trying to figure out, does it also go to the minister? How does it get to the minister's office for the minister to then use it as evidence?
These submissions don't go to the minister. It ends with the National Commissioner as the approving authority. Then it will go back to the project leader who would have applied for funding. I would of course have a copy to ensure that then I keep track in terms of the budget allocation as well as expenditures in this regard. They do not go to the minister.
Sorry, Chair, it's just, so in your view, how, and I know that maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but when the minister brings this document, I mean, it's an operational discussion between, yourselves as the officials who are signing it off. If you had to hazard, how do you think the minister even knows what you said? Because you said you never discussed this with him. He shouldn't, maybe ask that he shouldn't even know that you had written this comment, am I correct?
I am not saying he shouldn't know. I am not certain where he got hold of the document. I'm simply saying that it should not then be utilized as if, and creating an impression as if, as the CFO, I took the document and I went to the minister with the document. That is not what transpired. And I'm not saying he is not entitled to have a look at documents in the organization, but I certainly did not give him that document. When the document leaves my office, it goes to the National Commissioner. The National Commissioner will then approve it, goes back to the person who had requested funding. I would request a copy for purposes of my records as well as accounting properly. Probably the executive authority has access to documents and discussions in the organization, but I certainly did not give the minister that document, or General CBF for that matter.
So you've already discussed part of the comments that you made, which is under paragraph 23 of your witness statement. And this is just further clarification because a lot of emphasis in the evidence of both General Sabia and then subsequently the Minister, and in particular the Minister, was to say, and looking at the line just under paragraph 23 in the quote, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth line, where you say post-elections, the team must be deactivated as it has been in existence for the last 5 years. So there seems to have been the suggestion, and it was made in evidence, that you as the CFO had advocated for the disbandment of the team. But as I understand from what you're saying about the last line, was that you were in fact saying that steps need to be taken for the team to be made a permanent structure. Is that correct, or do you just want to clarify anything further?
That is the correct context, because if it is a permanent structure, it has been there for a long time, then it gives you an opportunity to be able to budget for it properly, to resource it properly, because clearly it is dealing with something that is a bit permanent in this regard. And as I indicated earlier, then issues of accountability in terms of the resources that you would have allocated to that particular team. So it is correct.
So, I mean, we have covered a significant amount in relation to that particular comment that you had made, but ultimately, as I understand, your evidence is to be saying that from a budgeting perspective, you had made that particular comment in that framework from a budgeting perspective, looking at the fact that this was a team that was ongoing for 5 years.
Yes.
But it was not, and you must just clarify for me if I'm putting words in your mouth, that it wasn't you advocating for the disbandment of the team in the way that it was eventually disbanded.
Correct. I wouldn't have advocated because I did not even know the operational work that they are doing. These are the operational conversations that I held with the operational teams together with the National Commissioner. So I do not normally get into meetings where the project leader will be briefing each other together with the National Commissioner. So it was from a resource point of view, as well as to assist us to be able to predict and to allocate resources and to ensure that there are systems in place to hold the relevant project leaders and project managers or whoever would then be heading this permanent team in terms of the resources that will be allocated to them.
If you can just give me a minute, I just wanted to confer with the senior. Thank you, General. I think in relation, and the AC had just wanted me to confirm with you that really the context within which this must be understood, certainly by the committee, is really from the budgeting point of view, and that it wasn't a operational decision.
Not at all. That is correct.
So then that then largely leaves us with the third theme that you explore in your evidence in relation to the health risk services contract. Can you, now the committee's already had quite an extensive explanation from General Fani about supply chain management and eventually how that contract was awarded within his component. But can you then explain to the committee how you begin to intersect with this health risk contract that was awarded to Mr. Matlala's company?
Okay. Perhaps before I start, just to confirm with the committee that I did not form part of any structure, be it the BSC or bid specification committee, bid evaluation committee or bid adjudication committee. I was not part of such structures when this contract was awarded. This was awarded by the BAC that is chaired by Lieutenant General Fani, and an SLA was signed by Lieutenant General Kua, who is the end user and who had requested these services to be procured on their behalf by supply chain management. I'm on leave in December. I have never formed part of any meeting that was called by the minister when the articles came out. I was not in office. I was on leave. When I came back from leave in January 2025, I get to be briefed by the internal auditors that were obviously appointed by the National Commissioner, having been tasked by the Minister in terms of the issues that were raised in the media surrounding this contract.
Can I just clarify things? The internal auditors come and brief you, are the internal auditors in your line department?
The internal auditors reports directly to the accounting officer. However, it is an environment that I work with closely, with the indication to say they understood the implication of this particular investigation. What implication will it have on the financial statements? You will note that this would have been the last quarter of a financial year, and we were preparing to close the financial year and subsequently to put together a set of financial statements. So I work very closely and coordinate the audit issues in the organization. That will be the internal audits as well as the external audits, as well as the activities of the audit committee. So the internal auditors together with the chief risk officers are the offices that I oversee and monitor and support on a continuous basis. They are given this task. I came back from leave. They then come and brief me to say, CFO, this is a task that has been given to us in your absence. We are proceeding with the audit of this particular issue. We are flagging it in the process of you preparing to close the financial year and ultimately to put a set of financial statements. Take note. So I support immediately the work that was done or the work that was given to this team by the National Commissioner.
So what is the significance for those of us that don't, certainly for myself, are not familiar with the budgeting cycle? When you say it was in the fourth quarter and they were raising this this investigation they were undertaking, what was the significance of that?
The significance was that by end of March we will be closing the financial year, and after the closure of the financial year, then you are expected as the CFO to then put together a set of financial statements that you will hand over to the external auditors to audit and determine whether your financial statements are credible and they indicate all the affairs of the department. So there is a note that we need to disclose. If there is any irregular expenditure, if there is any unauthorized expenditure or any fruitless and wasteful expenditure that has been incurred by the department for that year under review. So this essentially would then affect, if it is deemed to be irregular, it will then have to be reported and disclosed properly. So the auditors do brief me and we support the work that they do. And in the first week of March, a formal preliminary report is given to myself as well as General Fani to say the preliminary indication is that this contract is irregular. There is a possible irregular expenditure that you need to note. Now we do have.
Can I ask? You say that this is in March.
This is in the first week of March.
You are given a report saying there is concern in relation to this contract, and there's a possibility of declaring irregular expenditure in relation to this health risk services contract.
Yes.
You say that they briefed you and General Fani. Did they brief General Fani with you because he is head of the supply chain, or how does he become part of the conversation?
I indicated, Chair, that they then give me this report with a covering letter addressed to myself as well as General Fani. And the reason for that is that General Fani is the custodian of the irregular expenditure register. So immediately, an assurance provider, be it the internal auditors or external auditors, flags a transaction as a possible irregular expenditure, you are obliged to then report it and record it on the irregular expenditure as such. And in terms of the National Treasury Framework on irregular expenditure, you must then immediately ensure that you appoint somebody to then conduct a determination test to determine and come to a conclusion and confirm that either this indeed that has been flagged by the auditors is not correct or it is correct. So they had that indication. It was a formal letter that accompanied that report that was submitted to myself as well as the General Fund in this regard. So what I then did the following day, having been finished with this report that talks about the possible irregular expenditure, of course, we then requested supply chain management to uplift this transaction on the irregular expenditure register as a possible irregular expenditure. I then approached the National Commissioner to say, this is a contract that was awarded by the BAC that is chaired by General Fund. The framework requires us to then determine and confirm that indeed this is irregular. I do not see that General Fund will then deal with that particular process. So I need to assist you. Let us appoint somebody immediately to ensure that we are within the timelines as required by the framework to do this determination test. I wrote to the National Commissioner. The National Commissioner agreed, and we appointed a very competent person from Gauteng Finance, and we then instructed that investigating officer to ensure that within 30 days, or no before 30 days, that determination must be concluded. Where I am sitting, in the next 30 days, it will then be April. And I would need to then to start to put together these financial statements and to have a decision on this particular contract. So the IO goes on and investigates.
Just to clarify, when you say IO, is that investigating officer?
Yes, the one who is then doing or conducting a determination test for us. They go on, they complete the report, and somewhere in May, they bring back the report, and it is confirmed that this contract is irregular. What does that mean? It means it was awarded in contravention with various supply chain prescripts. It was awarded by the BAC. So it is confirmed. I then instruct supply chain management to say this transaction has to then move from possible irregular expenditure from the register to confirmed irregular expenditure. What then this means? It means the register that will come to me or to be submitted to me to put together note 24 on the financial statements. It is a register that will then have these transactions or this transaction confirmed as irregular, and we have to disclose such. So we then instructed supply chain management to upgrade it from possible irregular expenditure to confirmed irregular expenditure. And the amount...
Can I ask you a question at that point? Because when General Fani was with us last week, he said that he was not sure whether there had been a determination test that was done and whether that determination test had determined that there was irregular expenditure. Are you confirming that the determination test was done? Are you aware if that was shared with General Fani?
I shared it with General Fani. And I instructed supply chain to update the irregular expenditure register so that when they submit it to me, to then conclude note 24 of the financial statements, that transaction is there as confirmed irregular expenditure.
So then the financial statements were, when the financial statements were concluded, and I think this is at paragraph 31.4 of your statement. In note 24, or maybe you explain it because I think you're much more fair.
Okay. So in the set of financial statements, you have different notes that you will then have to disclose these types of expenditure. For the purposes of these discussions, I will then refer to note 24. If the committee has gone through our financials, that note then requires us to disclose this. There is an amount of 466 million that we had disclosed as irregular expenditure that was confirmed for 24-25 financial year. Within that 466 million, this contract constituted 48 million These were all the payments that were made from August, if I am correct, since the inception of this contract. So all of them, as per the recommendation of the determination test, to say this contract was awarded irregularly, therefore any expenditure that would have been incurred since the inception of this contract is then deemed irregular. So those figures amounted to about 48 million. There are a few invoices that remains on the system. I then instructed my team to stop those particular payments so that then we do not perpetuate the incurrence of irregular expenditure. So within the 466 million that is disclosed on that note, it has other various contracts and various transactions, but the 48 million relates to this particular contract. The committee will note that I have tried to simplify it or summarize it on the presentation that I have attached. We have various contracts there. On
Just
the
give us the page number, the page number that you're looking at in the annexes.
Given a few seconds.
I will assist you. I think it's page 389 of the annexes, annexure PPD 24.
Yes, Chair. It starts from 386 with a cover page there. So I tried to unpack the 650 that the Auditor General had flagged on our annual report. That 650 million consists of the 466 that was incurred in 2024, and there are other amounts of transactions that were investigated, that had taken place prior to 24-25, that were then confirmed in the financial year 24-25. That is why the amount is 650 that was discussed with the portfolio committee from the AGSA. Then the next subsequent slides are then unpacking what is lying on this particular amount. You will see that there's a number of contracts there. Majority of them would have been contracts that would have been awarded and they were deemed irregular. They would have been awarded by the BAC or at supply chain management headquarters, and then you do have other transactions that are on quotation basis that would have been incurred by various cost centers in provinces. You will note that a procurement takes place from a police station to a district to a province to head office. So the auditors, when they audit everywhere. They will then select provinces and stations where they will go and audit these procurement processes, and from time to time they will highlight these particular non-compliances all over. But when you look at this, the bulk of this irregular expenditure that was disclosed in 24-25 is in relation to bids. This will be tenders that were awarded, and provinces do not deal with tenders. Tenders are only dealt with at head office supply chain management. So within all this, this one that talks to Medicare constituted 48 million. These were invoices that, or payments that were made prior to the cancellation of this contract, of which the cancellation took place in May.
Yes. I just wanted to correct. I think I heard you say 28 million. I've got 48 million.
It's 48 million.
So out of the overall 460 that's disclosed in note 24, 48 million of it
relates to this contract.
Yes.
Yes.
And what I understood you to also be saying is that of the bulk of the irregular expenditure that sits in the Saps relates a lot to issues of bids and tenders.
Yes.
And those are issues that come mainly out of head office in relation to the supply chain management department.
That is correct.
And we are, could you then discuss what steps now have been taken? Because we know an internal audit has been done and was completed in April. And in your evidence, you now explain that what you've also had to do was declare the irregular expenditure, and that was done with the financials of the last financial year. Can you take us through what further steps have now been done in relation to this contract to be able to get to some accountability.
Okay. So we then disclose this as irregular prior to the submission of the financial statements, and I get further briefings from the internal audit team. And we were of the view that, when it comes to irregular expenditure in Saps, there seems to be lack of accountability, and the consequence management is not real. You have irregular expenditure taking place all over. Managers appointing people to do disciplinary investigations, and the disciplinary investigations, when they come out, the outcome is that a person must receive a written warning, a person must receive corrective counseling. So these, according to me, are not real consequence management, because they do not deter this behavior. That is according to me. You have people who are doing procurement and breaking the rules of procurement. The question is this deliberate? Are people breaking procurement rules deliberately to commit fraud? So this is a problem. This is a culture in Saps where irregular expenditure, you will find that there is no seriousness and accountability on it. So having an experience of some of these transactions where investigations were done and the outcome had said nothing must happen to a person, or a person must get a written warning, and so on and so on. We as myself as the CFO and other structures such as the audit committee, the internal auditors, the risk management, this is a concern, because if we do not deal with irregular expenditure decisively and ensure that there is real consequence management, we will never be able to resolve this. People will continue. We do not know whether they deliberately break these procurement rules with the intention of committing fraud. Then myself and the Chief Risk Officer, we approached the National Commissioner. We said, National Commissioner, this particular contract has caused a lot of harm for the department. There is reputational damage. The department is in disrepute. Yes, we have disclosed the 48 million as irregular, but we can't go on in this particular fashion. So we will need to get to the bottom of this in terms of identify where were the lapses and who was responsible for this, because the damage is too much. We then advise the National Commissioner to say, avoiding the risk of appointing somebody to then do an investigation and come back and tell us that somebody must get a written warning. Let's rather pursue this forensic audit investigation. So we advise the National Commissioner, because this matter, it's an embarrassment. We are tired of management or senior management not dealing with irregular expenditure the way it's supposed to be dealt with. So we approached him from a risk management point of view to say, we will appoint somebody to do an internal investigation, and then the report comes out and it says somebody must get a written warning on a damage like this and an embarrassment like this. So it is rather safer that we then channel our energy and all the reports that are on the table, that we support this forensic investigation. This forensic investigation is dealt with by experienced people who will be able to unearth this maladministration that has happened here and give us the real people who must be held accountable, with the possibility of recovering of monies in this particular regard. And the National Commissioner supported us in that regard. That forensic investigation is in the reporting phase and is being concluded, and we are looking forward to the outcome of that report, so that then we can implement real consequence management and serve as an example or as a deterrence, so that then we are seen to be serious in terms of these particular issues, because it starts small, breaking the rules in terms of quotations, and then it grows. And if you are not going to deal with this as a department decisively or ensure that we implement real consequence management, then we are going to have a problem. The accounting officer or the National Commissioner then, in addition to that, because it cannot be that we see this unreal consequence management, he has since then also established accountability sessions where he calls all of us, PCs, DIFCOMs, where everyone must bring any transaction that is deemed irregular and what were the disciplinary outcomes of that, and you explain yourself to say, why is it that the person has broken procurement rules and you gave that person a written warning? So this is a matter that the accounting officer is supporting, and those accountability sessions has been established in this regard, so that we get to the bottom of this and we declare zero tolerance in terms of this unwanted expenditure in the organization.
Thank you. Chair, I think now is the lunch adjournment. Can I just indicate for purposes of the committee that I possibly only have another 5 minutes with this witness, and I'm in your hands with whether you want me to complete it now or to complete it after lunch.
You need how many minutes?
5.
To conclude.
I just want to invite the witness to conclude.
Yeah, no, that should be granted. Honorable Malem.
I think she must be granted that 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, we agree.
Thank you. General Dimbani, you've taken us through, so I have 2 quick questions. The first is, we've had 2 witnesses, or 1 witness. The National Commission has referred to this forensic report. General Fani has referred to the fact that this forensic report. Could I ask you, would you be willing to make an undertaking that once that forensic report is made available, that it's also shared with the committee in order to be able to inform the committee of what exactly went wrong with regards to the health risk tender?
Certainly, with the approval of the accounting officer, that report could be made available to the committee.
When do you anticipate that this forensic investigation will be concluded?
It has been indicated that next month, which is December. I believe before Christmas that report will be here.
Yes, so in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that forensic report investigation will be concluded. General Dimbani, is there then anything that you want to be able to highlight? As I've indicated, I'm in a position where I feel we've covered your evidence, but is there anything else before I hand you over to the committee?
Yes, perhaps I did not conclude on the issues of irregular expenditure. I touched on the 466 million, I touched on the 650. There is also an indication from the AGSA that there's a 2.4 billion that is not dealt with. And this has been reported and discussed at the level of the portfolio committee. Perhaps I wanted to then also give an overview in terms of what is this amount all about and what are the concerns of AGSA. In 2019, when I took over the reins as a CFO, this department was struggling with a qualification audit of opinion from AGSA, I think for 3 years. And one of the main reasons for such, it was the issues of irregular expenditure. There was an indication to say it might be that the department is understating or under-disclosing irregular expenditure to the tune of 900 million. And therefore, the Auditor General was unable to give this department an unqualified audit opinion. So this is a project that we undertook when I took over. I had a discussion with the auditors, both internal as well as external, with a view of putting together an action plan to resolve this, because it was important that we resolve this and we ensure that when it comes to issues of governance and reporting, this department is doing things the way they are expected. So it was a massive undertaking, Chair. We embarked on a process. The auditors indicated that for us to listen to you as Saps, you'll have to go back from a police station to a district to a province and assess transactions 4 years back. You work it back 4 years. I think we went back 2016. We had to assess those transactions that we had ever made and convince the auditors and convince ourselves that those transactions were free from errors as well as irregular expenditure. It was a massive exercise that we undertook. Nonetheless, we did that exercise. The outcome of the exercise was then presented to the auditors, and the auditors were happy. And together with the other qualification areas, we worked, and those qualification areas were subsequently resolved. And I can indicate to this committee that ever since such, for the past 5 years, we have been in a position to submit quality financial statements that are not adjusted, are not and are free from material errors in this particular regard. So, when we are embarking on this exercise, we pick up, we then unearth. Remember, we went back 4 years back. We then get these mistakes and these irregularities, and then we are then required to disclose them. So we disclose this in the financial statements as well as in the irregular expenditure register. So what is required, or what was required post that particular project, was for us then to deal with these transactions in a form that we appoint people to investigate, there is discipline, we confirm that there is no fraud, there is no losses, and so on and so on, and ultimately, in line with the National Treasury Framework, we then submit to the condoning authorities to then condone should we meet the requirements in terms of condonation, and we remove this. So the concern from AG is that the progress is slow in terms of dealing with this portion. And you will see this particular 2.4 billion that is spoken about. When you go through our annual report, it is lying on Part E of our annual report, that is the compliance. So we need to ensure that we expedite and we pull up our socks in terms of dealing with these transactions. The process has been a bit slow, Chair. We have been working with Treasury. There has been submissions from supply chain management to Treasury. Sometimes Treasury will bring them back without condoning, looking for additional information, and so on and so on. So we need to deal decisively and speedily with this 2.4 billion that is sitting there. I have since requested the National Commissioner to rather, in writing, give me these functions, delegate me these functions so that I can support supply chain management and we expedite this. I can confirm that we have had positive deliberations with National Treasury. They are willing to support us so that then we decisively deal with this Part E of the annual report, and we deal decisively with this 2.4 billion that is lying there. Progress has not been as fast as we would like it to be, but all the stakeholders are cooperating, and we are glad that Treasury has come to the table to assist us in terms of dealing with this. Those that would not have been confirmed by National Treasury, the framework in terms of paragraph 5.6 then tells you that the accounting officer can remove them from the books, but it's not going to be just a removal. They must comply with all the rules that are expected in terms of that National Treasury Framework. So I have subsequently requested the National Commissioner to delegate me that function to support him to deal with this, and that process is unfolding, and we want to believe that very soon our irregular expenditure register will be clean, and that Part E, compliance reporting on our annual report, will be clean, and there ought to be accountability where there is accountability that would have determined that people deliberately engaged in unethical conduct and engaged in activities that they were not supposed to engage themselves on. So we would request to be given support while we support the National Commissioner to deal with these issues and to ensure that this unwanted expenditure becomes a zero tolerance for the organization, and this culture of just not accounting becomes a thing of the past. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. That would be General Dimpane's evidence in chief. I'm in your hands.
Thank you so much, Advocate Zikalala and General Dimpane. We have come to the end of presentation of evidence. This time we are going to break. I'm going to request that we should meet as the committee during a break together with you, SC, and your team to deal with one matter. Bonani will announce the venue. Thank you so much. We are coming back at 14 hours.